Matt Dasselaire, he is the mortgage broker for First Place Bank right here in Grand Rapids. He is a Grand Valley graduate from 2001, from Boyne City, Michigan originally. And Josh May is a realtor with RE/MAX, and he also is a graduate from Grand Valley State, 2002 grad. He's also from Boyne, and they actually went to high school together. So these two guys make quite a tandem when it comes to buying a home, mortgage and the person that will sell you the house eventually. So without further ado, I want to welcome you guys and thank you for coming to this event.
Thanks, Dave. It does kind of seem weird that we're this close, but this is a nice guy. Anyway, remember the icebreaker we talked about earlier? It just did not work there.
Hey, you guys got to cheer up a little bit. You haven't been drinking enough, I'm assuming. What would you guys go to buy? What happened? You need me to buy some? How much money do I need in here?
Yeah.
$4 each. I won't be able to buy a house. Yeah. But do you want me to print off some of those things?
We'll be good.
Okay. Let me know. I'm gonna run around. All right.
You're going to go get bought.
So anyway, again, my name is Josh, and I've actually been selling real estate for 12 years. Believe it or not, I started selling real estate when I was a junior in college at Grand Valley, and it's all I've ever done for the past 12 years. So I really enjoy it. Actually, 70% of my business probably is from working with first-time home buyers, and it's generally just because it's kind of the age range that I'm in, and we have a lot of fun. So,
too old to work with first-time home buyers.
So most often, I'll get a phone call. I'll be sitting at the office, and I'll get a phone call, and some buyer will say, "Hey, I saw this house online. I've got to see it." So then that's when I kind of take a step back and say, well, there is a process it's important to follow, because I don't want people to get into it not knowing what they're doing and kind of wasting their time and or other people's time. So there's a process to follow, and step number one is generally just understanding your financial situation and getting pre-approved for your mortgage. Definitely step one. That's when you're going to call Matt. So I'll send the buyer over to Matt and my better lenders that I work with. I'll send them over, and they'll discuss things. They'll talk about what their comfortable monthly payment is, how their credit score is, which greatly affects maybe, what kind of interest rate you can get, and just really be set with that process. Then he'll send it back to me, and then we can kind of go and I'll facilitate the home buying process and or experience. So I'm going to pass it over to Matt. He's going to talk about that. Then I'll talk a little bit more about the home buying process, and we'll open it up for question and answer after that.
Thanks, Josh. Again, Matt Dasselaire with First Place Bank. Been doing mortgage lending for 11 years now, and came right out of college, and I couldn't get a job doing anything else. Nobody liked me, so I had to go into this brutal business. But Josh is right on. Basically, I get people calling who are in a panic. I saw a house. I've got to have it. It's perfect. It's exactly what I need. I just talked to the realtor. He said he won't talk to me unless I know I can buy it. So they come to me. They have to have an approval done. It's got to be done today because they have to put an offer in before the house is gone. So they're in a big rush. They're excited. So I give them the list that you see in here. Basic income documentation that I need. I tell them, start working on this. Are you self-employed? Are you salaried? Are you hourly? What type of income do you have? And based on that, I give them a list of things that we need. Second thing is I'm going to pull their credit. Has anybody here had their credit pulled in the last 3-4 months? Okay, good. How'd you do it?
Through a bank.
Through a bank? Anybody do it on freecreditreport.com or anything like that? Okay. Good. I encourage you guys to do that. One thing I would mention, with the free credit report, did you get a score?
Yeah. FICO score.
FICO. Yep. FICO or FICO. You'll get a score with that. Sometimes you have to pay or sign up for some weird service or something like that. But yeah, you really want to make sure you know what that score is. The one thing I always caution you on is a mortgage score is going to be a little different than what you get from that scoring. So we're going to have a little bit of a different bureau. Things are weighted a little bit differently. So I would encourage, even if you're a year, 2 years off, if you have not had your credit pulled, I will do it for you. There's no cost. I think normally it's going to cost you money to have somebody do it. We'll get it pulled, get a report in front of you, make sure there's no errors on it, make sure that there's no collections, judgments, all those types of things can happen to you by mistake. And those things will keep you from buying a home. So get that done, and really you should check every year to year and a half on your credit. A lot of people are very concerned that it's going to hurt their credit, hurt their scores if their credit gets pulled. It's not going to, unless all of a sudden in 2 month time you apply for 3 credit cards, 2 cars, and a house. It's going to hurt your score. So just keep that in mind. It's prudent to take care of it, monitor it, as long as you don't abuse it. So now we've gone over the list of documentation that I need. We send that to me, either email it, fax it, drop it off, we meet, we get that together. I've got your credit in front of me. With those 2 things combined, I'm going to let you know you're going to be approved for a certain amount. Let's say you're approved up to $100,000. With that, we also are going to talk about how much money do you have to put down. Do you have 5%, 10%, 20%? Those are the kind of things that will impact that approval. So once I know those things, we'll get the approval letter scratched together, get that to Josh, and that's kind of your ticket to get out there and shop. The down payment, I'll go over a couple of misconceptions you may have heard, you may have questions about later. Down payment, guys and gals, ladies, is not necessary in some cases. So you don't need 20% down to buy a house right now. You don't necessarily need perfect credit and lots of credit to buy a house right now. There are some great first-time homebuyer programs, FHA, rural development, MISHDA. These are all programs geared toward first-time homebuyers and even people in kind of a low to moderate income category to help own your first home, buy your first home. So rural development allows you to buy, and that's not buying a farm, by the way. In fact, they don't even do farms. But rural development is basically just outside of Grand Rapids, Hudsonville, even some like Kentwood, Rockford. All those areas are going to be great areas for that rural development loan, which is a true zero down program. So you can go in, you can actually buy a house still today, even with what you've heard, that all that crazy stuff about mortgages, zero money out of your pocket, other than some nominal costs for some inspections and that type of thing. But for down payment and closing costs, you can actually do that with zero money out of your pocket. So don't be discouraged if you don't have a whole bunch of money there, or mom and dad haven't given you the yearly inheritance or anything like that. Go ahead and get out there and start looking. I think those were the things. Oh, the second page that I've got on the left-hand side, it talks about just some things to keep in mind when you're going through an approval process. These are going to be things that, from the time you start thinking about it until the time you close, you want to make sure you live by it. So when I say you start thinking about it, I don't mean when you first talk to the mortgage guy. Because when I first talk to you, I'm going to go back 2 months. So I want to make sure when you start thinking about it 2 or 3 months before you actually talk to me, those are the things that you've done. Be very careful with what you do. And if it's on there, it doesn't necessarily mean do not do it. It just means make sure that you talk to your banker and they're aware of what you're doing. Yes?
Really quick. Number 8, do not apply for any type of credit until after closing. In my fiance's situation, he only had 2 credit scores.
Okay.
And so they're like, where's that third one? Did we get that third one going?
Okay. Credit bureaus, there's 3 different scores. There's 3 different bureaus that are used. We always are going to use.
I think she's talking about applying for like credit cards in the process of buying a home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what happens is if you don't have 3 scores, the bank is going to use the lower of the 2. So depending on where the scores are, they may want to try and get a third one added to help use the higher, the middle one or the second one is higher. So if you need to, and it's something that you've discussed with the loan officer, and they tell you to go apply for credit and try and get a third score, then obviously they know about it, they're working with you to do that. My bigger concern is the folks who, we got the house, we get almost to closing. Before closing, we always have to do a credit report 5 days before. We do a credit update, and they bought $6,000 worth of art van furniture for their new house. Everybody laughs, but people have lost their home because of that. So be careful doing things like that. All of a sudden they've got a $300 car payment. That's on there. I put that on there because that has happened. So they got to be out. They're planning on buying. They told the rental place that they are done. They got to be out the 30th. They're closing on the 1st, and they went and bought a car. So now they're living in it. But that stuff sounds kind of scary, but really, as long as you're upfront with the loan officer, they know what you're doing, you're going to be fine. Yeah, I think after that, we get the approval off to Josh, and you guys are out shopping.
We did once have a buyer buy an engagement ring in that process. Fortunately, he was still able to go through with the house. Otherwise, that would have been a problem. So my stuff's on the right hand of the packet there, right hand side of the packet, and I'm going to go through kind of the steps to buying. Page 3 is kind of where I wanted to start with agency relationships, in discussing how realtors work together and how realtors get paid. Because for first-time homebuyers, often I hear things like, well, we just aren't really interested in paying a bunch of money to have a realtor represent us. We can do this stuff on our own. Does anybody understand how realtors get paid and how those agency relationships work by chance? Anybody? We do get paid commission, but do you know how?
On the seller side.
Yes, correct. So basically what happens is Matt, for example, is the listing agent. He meets with the seller, and at that point when they're going to list their house, they discuss a commission arrangement. They may say, we're going to pay 6% for you to sell our home. At that point, Matt immediately says, well, I'm going to cut my commission in half and pay any buyer's agent half of my commission if they bring me a buyer. So probably in 95% of the real estate transactions, there's two agents, a buyer's agent and a seller's agent. Buyer agent is representing the buyer, seller's agent, of course, is representing the seller, and commissions get paid by the seller. The reason why that's important is because you can go out and you can do all this on your own, but at the end of the day, if you don't have any representation, and you're going up against somebody that's been hired by the seller to represent the seller. And then, bonus for this guy, he's getting paid twice as much because you don't have any representation. So we love the people that want to do it on their own, but it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do that unless you're an attorney or feel confident that for some reason you're going to get a better deal by doing this on your own.
One thing I'll add is, on my side, on the lending side, in many cases, I will not work with you if you're not represented by an agent. Typically what happens is all the work that an agent does, a lot of people don't necessarily recognize is done behind the scenes. But when that's not done by an agent, that means I have to do it and I don't have time to. And it's not my expertise. You're probably not going to get the job done, from me that you would an agent. So first thing I always do, if they're not represented, is I make sure that they do talk to an agent. They're critical to a transaction going smoothly.
Yeah. So for us, it's very easy to set up the showings, to search for houses, to send you emails, again, to line up the tours, to walk you through houses, open up the doors. Where our job becomes more important, especially in the first-time homebuyer's experience, is representing you through the purchase agreement, the inspections, making sure the closing goes smoothly. So that's what I want to talk about a little bit next. Is that first page talks about kind of 10 steps to buying. So after you've talked with Matt, generally I'll have first-time homebuyers back in my office, doing a consultation like we're doing tonight. We'll go over, basically the process, question and answer, make sure people are comfortable, and then we'll talk about things like, what type of neighborhood, of course, what type of house, how many bedrooms and bathrooms, square footage, and I'll throw in a lot of things that people just probably aren't thinking about, like why is it important to have, this style of home rather than this style of home, why might that affect resale? So we'll discuss a lot of those things, make sure that you guys are starting to get an understanding of why, hey, I might want, this fenced-in backyard, or this school district, or, this neighborhood. So then you'll leave the office, we'll do some computer work, send you guys the emails, and then myself or another realtor will set up the showings. We'll get out, we'll find the house, and then at that point, again, the important stuff begins. We begin the negotiations on the purchase agreement. Once we get a deal in place, everybody's happy, buyer and seller happy. And then the important thing that we step into next is the inspection period. It's very important, one of the most important parts of the actual escrow 30-day close window. Once you accept an offer or get an offer accepted, you enter into this 10-day window where you get to inspect the property and make sure that you're happy with the house moving forward. Now, if there's things that come up, you have the opportunity to renegotiate, maybe get a lower price. If there's catastrophic issues with structure or roof, then you can back out of the deal and move forward with another house. Or if you're happy, you just move forward towards that close date, work a little bit more with Matt in between, and then we work on setting up that close date and possession time, and everybody's happy. So that's kind of the process in a nutshell. You can always kind of refer back to the 10 steps there, and it'll go over, kind of where some various costs are. But at this time, we want to do some question and answer, right?
Yes. We'll put it up.
So, the last group did a really good job. Curious to see how many questions you guys have. Maybe we should start with Sarah down there.
I have questions.
Okay.
You mentioned the fenced-in backyard in the school district.
Yeah.
What other attributes do you really consider when looking at your house?
Yeah.
Your first big asset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked about this a little bit earlier. With where we're at in the market, this is so important for people to just make a smart investment and make sure that they're looking at these characteristics. Biggest thing for me is understanding the proper neighborhood to be in. Maybe a school district, maybe not. There's plenty of good neighborhoods around Grand Rapids that are going to have a good resale for you, but you need to understand why you're selecting a neighborhood. Another thing that comes into play is style of home. Maybe understanding why a ranch home might appeal to the mass a little bit more when you resell. Two-story homes are great. And then you go on down the line to multi-levels, tri-levels. So kind of understanding styles of homes. Understanding bedrooms are very important. There's some people that certainly could get away with a 2-bedroom house. But again, you need to understand from a resale perspective, by getting a 2-bedroom house, when you sell it, you're probably losing maybe 75% of your market by buying that house. And I'm not saying you can't sell it, but just kind of understanding those types of things. Square footage is important, bathrooms is important, things like that. So.